Good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. This is the Legislative Action and Community Engagement Committee meeting. Welcome back to school to everybody. I hope everybody's had a successful start to the school year. Let's jump into it. There was a lot on our agenda. So the first item was the letter writing campaign. I know last month we had shared that we had a lengthy letter that we had kind of went through and talked about, going through and kind of revamping and looking through it to get some bullet points out of there.
And it's done. Great. So I think we worked together, Zach and myself, and we feel that we have a letter. We didn't want to write it electronically yet because it's the discretion of the committee and of course chairperson and then board leadership to make decisions. We want to make sure it's something we wanted. But there has been some conversation about possibly holding off only because we do have our first meeting, which we believe should be a series of meetings. Ms. Kirby could probably speak on it with the mayor this Friday. And the language that we have in there, if you want to give a quick read,
Sure.
that'd be great.
Would you like me to read it or just?
Would you read it? Would
Yeah.
you mind? Because you're going to see what I mean about why we might want to hold off putting it out to the public to make sure some of these things aren't for sure addressed by the township. Okay.
So I will read the draft letter.
Sure.
This is a very generic letter, and as we discussed earlier today, my guess is that this letter will then take legs, and then we will then craft it pursuant to how things go with our local meetings.
Right.
And then some of the outcomes of that. So, okay, so dear whomever, in spring 2023, our school district was notified that budget resolution number 924, appropriating $1 million to the Monroe Township School District for infrastructure improvements at the Applegarth Elementary School, was included in the final budget signed by Governor Murphy. While Monroe Township is very fortunate to have the allotted $1 million appropriated to address some of these infrastructure needs in our district, it is far below the estimated $18.6 million of improvements needed to meet the operational and safety needs of our rapidly expanding and diverse learning community, appropriately and authentically. The scope of our district's needs expands beyond a singular school building and have been magnified by the rapid growth and development of the Monroe Township community. Our district's emergent needs include, but are not limited to, we'll start with the Applegarth Elementary School.
And that's the bullets that we talked about.
And these are the bullets. The roof replacement, you want to go through the figures and monitor those as well?
Absolutely.
Roof replacement, estimated, all these are estimated, provided by our consultants and our contractors through Mr. Tegg's office. The Applegarth Elementary School, start again. Roof replacement, approximately $4.3 million. HVAC system replacement and upgrade, $7.1 million. To be in compliance with the American Disabilities Act, toilet room renovations and replacements, $336,000. Now we'll jump over to the Monroe Township Middle School. HVAC systems, replacement and upgrade, $5.1 million. Again, at the Monroe Township Middle School, boiler replacement, $1.48 million approximately. We also have some other ADA compliance upgrades that we need to make regarding toilet room renovations. That is estimated to be about $186,000. Partial window replacements, some of the aging infrastructure around in the windows, pursuant to some of the climate issues we've had. And that would be $10 million, and that's just a partial window replacement. And then jump over to the high school. We've been talking about this for some time. The situation and the stadium bleachers and team rooms, as our teams and our competitions have expanded, are grossly undersized to accommodate the needs of our learners and our fans and our community and our athletes. So that was estimated to be about $8.1 million. And then this is more of a district level relief as our infrastructure and our municipality has become more reliant on the services of the districts to do things like snow removal and to handle some of the landscaping and just not necessarily aesthetic, but also when you think about drainage, what we've had to do to ensure that the trailers at the middle school are safely, distributed and set up. There are some costs associated with that, which total at about $500,000. So we've itemized that for our recipients of the letter. So that was the itemized list. And then we close with the following statement. The Monroe Township School District is always willing to sit and meet with officials from the New Jersey Department of Education to discuss our continued need for additional school funding and the ramifications that the lack of funding has had on the education of our students. We hope that you'd be willing to meet with stakeholders from our school district, leaders from our local Board of Education, and our Finance Committee to talk about our unique financial needs, operational constraints resulting from the lack of adequate state funding, and other possible avenues to fund our much-needed facility improvements. Thank you in advance for your efforts to help get more for the Monroe Township School District. Sincerely, concerned resident. Notably omitted from this letter are the increasing costs of curriculum instruction, obviously, which is the elephant in the room as we face down these facility needs, because those costs obviously are increasing exponentially as 21st century learning becomes an expectation. We just found out today from the state that in 2027, they're going to put some more increased emphasis on computer science, which obviously comes with a hefty price tag. So our needs are emergent, and they're not going away, and we hope that strong support and participation from the community. And obviously this letter is a working document, so we'll take it. And it can be changed, modified, increased, decreased, depending on how things go locally. But I do think that these are very real. I don't think anyone would debate that these items that we have identified in this letter are fabricated or exaggerated. And we feel pretty good, but obviously that's going to be our starting point for this initiative. And now I guess we can discuss.
And I feel, if I may, I feel that the letter, it has got a lot of meat and it's got a lot of substance, but at the same time, it's very user-friendly. We start off with our introduction. It's got the bullets of all the exact things with an approximation and approximating amount. And then we close by saying, of course, we want to work together and we're always willing to meet.
And these estimations are not coming from just us sitting around these tables. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, these were
directly from Mr. Tague's office.
Yes, sir. And I thank his office because they did help pull these numbers together very quickly. So in the last paragraph, I just want to mention something.
Sure.
So the first sentence says, the Monroe Township School District is always willing to sit and meet with officials from the New Jersey Department of Education. Obviously, they're not the only people that we want to reach out to.
Right.
So when we talk about modifying this letter and making it more
It
appropriate.
might say assembly this, that.
Yeah, and my guess,
Legislators from our, right, New Jersey legislators, I agree.
and we popped keywords in this letter that would resonate more with the Department of Ed. But if I was going to write a letter, let's say if we decided we want some of these letters to go to Senator Greenstein, you know, we'd probably modify it in a way that would resonate more with her office, and that would just be tweaking verbiage and things like that. But depending on how the committee wants to go, you know, this would be the message that we would produce to anyone, locally, state, nationally, because these are the emergent needs of the district, not only derived from the feedback from our organization, but also from the community.
No, sorry, I do know though, we did just receive $4 million
Okay, well,
from the ROD grant, so I don't know if.
Well, I can speak a little bit on that. So because the committees, we always say nothing stays within one committee, and we're always having a conversation where it really belongs. So we do want to let you know that at BG&T tonight, we are going to discuss the ROD grants, because as you know, or may not know, or the public may or may not know, when we get these ROD grants monies, we are required, they give us 40% of our needs. So if, let's say they're giving us $4 million, but we need $10 million, that means we have to come up with $6 million. And that's very important for the public to know, because if we are fortunate enough to say, yes, we want to accept the $4 million, we must have $6 million to put with the 4 to make the 10 million work. And I know that there are districts surrounding us that wind up giving back the money, and that's very sad, monies that they need, because they have no way of matching that. So that's gonna be a conversation, which I think is good for the public that's watching to know to stay on and watch BG&T to talk about the ROD.
So if I could just, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask what ROD stands for.
We asked that already once. I don't know.
Regular operating district.
Okay.
I think that's what it stands for.
So just if I understand what you said, so like, for example, we said the HVAC system, and I don't know if this would be something that qualifies for ROD grant, so forgive me. So at Apple
What's an
Garden,
example?
yes, so 7.1 million. Let's say if we wanted to take that 4 million from the ROD grant to replace the HVAC system. If our district is unable to come up with the 3.1 difference,
We need to
we
get
can't
that.
use that ROD grant.
No, and not only can we not use it, we may not keep it.
Yeah.
The money gets returned.
Well, we don't.
We don't take it.
We don't get it.
We don't get it in the first place. We don't get it.
Right.
Like, here's a perfect example. We all know, we're very pleased. We didn't know till way after the fact, because no one told us, but we were very excited about the $1 million we're getting. Well, we were waiting, and it was discussed at finance, that we are getting it any day now. But we had to look into, Ms. Allen, of course, took the lead and had the conversations about, okay, thank you for the $1 million, but if I need 10 million, just coming on number, or 6 million, can we use it towards this, or like, these are the questions.
What are the stipulations that hold?
Correct, right. So every time we get money, there are always stipulations.
So First of all, I want to thank you guys for looking through it. I know I tend to be very wordy, as many of you have found out over the years in what I write. I guess I'm just a little bit confused because the initial draft of the letter was really focused more on the funding formula. And while this certainly is another need of our district, an immediate need, right? Because we have infrastructure where there are challenges. I feel like that's almost like a different letter. The initial one sort of discussed, without having to go into all of like the nitty gritty, because that can be confusing to people who maybe don't live it on a daily, weekly basis. But talking about how we only receive
things that have been, the forefront of what we've been discussing. I don't think that this is not a necessary letter, I just feel like it's a different letter.
Keep going. You're good.
The same thing. I would say the same thing. It didn't sound like what we originally wanted or wrote. It sounded like an entirely different thing. I want to ask you.
Once these, the last conversation we had, and except turn around right there, but we put, clearly the conversation that was wants, needs, and must haves, and we were gonna take it, shrink it down, and make it bullet.
We did, but,
First, I would say, of course, we hadn't had the correct funding of our district, of course, the funding letter, these are areas of need. But that's only the second thing.
There, we have not gotten the correct money and the right amount of money over the years, and this is what's needed because we cannot.
And I think we have to be careful to say correct, because we want to be technical, we do get the correct amount.
No, I need to change the word.
We might be saying, because we feel that the funding formula is incorrect, the amount of money that we receive, causes the flow that we can come up with that. I don't think that would be, of course, Simon City, you should let him, but I think the letter as it is, the letter asking for the said. Funding, the funding formula as it stands. If the funding formula is something I think it's 20 minutes, I would so. Funding for and then passport and all this other.
Fruition yet, so I also I feel like that should maybe be included in the letter, but then taking that information and then saying like, because, like you said, because
Right.
the fair funding formula isn't fair for us, this is the result of
Yes.
that. This
sort of
is
a
where we are.
combination of both.
No, I agree, and that's very easy, because what you do is, I like the way we start off the letter, but said, gives, provide explanation, as they should be aware. But you have to remember also that they, as it stands, do not think that it's unfair.
Right.
Because if they thought it was unfair, it would have been changed a long time ago.
Right.
Apparently it remains as is, because they feel, when they went ahead and did the corrections, we were the district that were not corrected. Other districts were corrected.
The conversation that we had last month was, the original letter basically says everything that our legislators know. They know what we get in.
They don't need us to tell them that,
They know all of that. What they don't know is.
how it affects us.
What our
What the
needs
impact is.
are.
right.
So, we could put in there because of the way the formula is and because
Right.
of your lack of
Yes.
wanting to.
Change the
have this
formula,
Task force.
which
you
I
know,
don't think
we
they're ever gonna have.
No.
We're not.
No.
We're not gonna have.
That will not happen.
It was like a year ago when I asked if the.
They're not, they haven't even put one together, and I talked to Senator Greenstein, and she said, it's a long way coming. Because it was a long way coming for the original, formula for the funding, and this is going to take just as long.
Mhm.
So we have to be proactive ourselves for Monroe and just dive in there and see what we can get and what we can do.
But I do for way too long. I've been advocating in this district for well over a decade. I never knew that we could reach out to our legislators and say, hey,
We need more money.
enter a resolution into the budget for X, Y,
I
Z.
had no idea.
No board and no prior administration
Never.
ever discussed doing that. When we saw that come out,
Well, when we were
We
awarded
were
the money, I
shocked.
didn't know who's giving it, where it's coming from.
we'll take it, but that's
Right.
fantastic. But if we knew we could do that, then we should be asking every year, this list. Here, we were able to do this, this, and this, but not this. So this year, we would like you to enter a resolution, for that. And maybe you have then the residents engaged at that point to say, we know the budget, we know that the legislators are gonna be able to enter a resolution in. We need as many people from Monroe to write a letter now to say, please enter a resolution for X amount of money for this project.
And I think that warrants a conversation now too, to find out when do we need to start pushing for that? Because
Well,
I feel
it's
like it's going to start coming soon for
Yeah,
next
it's an
year. And
election
we don't
year
wanna
for
miss it.
those representatives.
Absolutely.
So it would look like a feather in their cap if they went ahead and listened to our letter, and the voters here would be like on board 100% if we got in time, like you said, and got to them in time.
I also just want to look at it from like a different perspective, because I know you've been involved in this for so many years. For me, someone who like, I didn't really get involved until my daughter hit kindergarten, which wasn't until 2017, right? So I didn't know as much about the funding, and, you know, I knew about out of districts, having been a teacher right near one. So like, I understood the inequities there, but I had no idea that Monroe received $0 in equalization aid, and that nearby districts who are in the same income as we are approximately are receiving so much more. So I think while the necessities of our infrastructure should be in there, because it's a real problem, it's immediate, and I think it gets our, you know, the people who are sending kids to the buildings and people who, you know, really everyone should care. But I also think we're getting even more vested interest from taxpayers who say, wait a second, we're sending X much to the state and we're getting back a fraction of this. It's not fair. This needs to be fixed permanently. And this letter is sort of the way to, for both of those vehicles, I feel like we can sort of put both in there, and hopefully they'll see the needs that are now, as well as the systemic change that needs to happen.
Well, we could certainly add a
Yeah, that's.
piece in there about the funding formula and about the.
Right at top,
and the
you listen to
equalization.
them. This is the reason why we have these issues.
What's the equalization aid? I might have missed it.
No, I didn't,
No.
it wasn't referenced. The reference
No, I
was
didn't
to
hear it at
the
all.
$1 million budgetary inclusion.
That we got without
And
knowing.
then, you know,
That
how
anybody
that
else-
was just. a
But people
adjustment.
don't realize when they say, at the finance meeting last night, Laura said, well, we got 10 point some million, I have my figures in the car. But because of 40%, then we're only gonna get 4 million. So, you
Correct.
know, people don't understand that.
And if
The
we don't
state
come up with
comes-
60%, we can't keep it.
Right, and the
We can't
state
get it.
comes up and will mathematically takes it. All right, oh, here's your 10 million, but guess what? You're only getting 4. So, I mean, people need to know that too. Maybe in it, not that, but maybe when we go out and say things, explain better. Well, look, you know, they offered us this, but because of this rule, that rule, S9273, you're only gonna get.
We're making up bills.
Right, yeah, right, you're only gonna get
Sounded good.
4 million.
Well, it's
People
like,
don't
it's like
understand.
shell game almost. They're like, you know,
Exactly.
they're like, hey, your project costs 10 million.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna give you 4 million.
That's right.
And you don't have, we know you don't have the 5 million because you don't have it, or you wouldn't have been asking for the 10. So therefore, you can't have any of it, and we just keep the money again, and we look like, hey, we offered you, you know, we get to put it in the newspaper, we get to promote, we're giving, you know, X amount of money to Monroe Township in these ROD grants, but you're really not giving it to us because we
Nope.
need to have the rest of it to even do the
And
project.
people need to
That's-
know that. That could be a small portion of something that has to go out.
In your conversation with Senator Greenstein, did she express open, maybe coming to speak to our residents about her role in all of this and how maybe she could help us? Because I know she pops up around town every so often. Was she-
Yeah, she's around town quite a bit. I've seen her a couple of times. I asked her to pop herself down here and she, told me no.
Oh, it's just because I feel like even as a board or an administration, we could better advocate for our community if we kind of were able to understand the nuance of,
Well, there's 2 others. Benson moved up, but there's somebody else coming in his
I was just thinking
position.
she's right down the street.
And D'Angelo too is another one. I know she's ours, but I mean,
Because she's right on Cranberry Road, I believe.
I'm not sure where her office
Yes,
is.
right there.
I just feel like a lot of it is conjecture, and we speculate about how the senators think and the process. It'd be great to just, if we were able to understand it better, we could advocate better. And sometimes like you said, the shell game, we could be very useful. We have a very mobilized community, and I just feel like we're very, it's tough to figure out the best path for advocacy. And I would love to be, on behalf of the district, it would be great to hear it straight from the decision maker's mouth, so we're not
Right.
shooting in the dark.
Yep. I can call her again when I come back. I can give her another call and speak to her and see what she says.
Just so we make sure we're on the right track.
Yeah.
you know?
Right,
Yeah, we
right.
officially invited her several times through letters, from the Board of Education. And when I met her, I think it was during one of the scout events or whatever, and I said to her, listen, I understand you don't want to come to public meeting, because then there's public forum, and then the residents can come up and say, you know, address you, and maybe, you
Yeah,
know,
no, I get
she didn't want it, she absolutely did not want to come to a public meeting, but I said, we have committee meetings that the public's not allowed to
I'll bring
speak
that up.
at.
Right.
And she said, well, oh, I would be, I would be interested in possibly reach out to my office. And then you see, I sent countless, we're having this meeting on this.
Doesn't
Tuesday.
respond.
No response. Well, the response, so the last time I sent another one, I said, it's, we've asked again, we're asking again for you to come. I think it was the finance or to this meeting. And the reply I got was, we're giving you $1 million. I'm like, oh, okay, is that because we asked so many times?
Well, maybe if it's on Cranberry Road, if she doesn't want to come here, we can oblige by going to her office.
Well, I was even
To
thinking that.
her and her own,
She
and her own,
she met with us at the Department of Education.
but on Cranberry.
No,
No.
we went to her.
Because isn't Kyle Anderson is on Cranberry?
He's in
too?
East Brunswick.
No, he's in East Brunswick.
East Brunswick.
I also think, and I don't know if there's something we have to get, like, legal clarification on, but if we meet with the senator, I believe it's as private citizens, we cannot, except for the board president is the only one who's allowed to speak on behalf of the board, I believe. So obviously we can state our concerns, but my understanding is we can't go in there as board members unless we're given the right to do so, like with legislators.
I don't know.
Would we be allowed to go?
We'd have to ask Rita to say what.
Go in where? To have a meeting with her?
We
I mean,
can speak, to speak
pri-
as board members.
Well, right, so to go somewhere to speak on behalf of the board, that would be the board president's role.
Right, so we can't go there and say, we'd like you to look at this as a
No,
board
no,
of
no,
education
no.
member. We can say, listen, I'm a taxpayer and this is unfair.
If she's squeamish about facing the public, I mean, these meetings tend to be, there's no public.
Comfortable.
Here, yeah.
That's what I said.
Right, yeah.
I kept saying, I said, it's a,
I'll speak to
it's
her.
a, so- now tomorrow night they have a candidates forum, so maybe she'll be there if we all want to go there and
Yeah,
potentially.
it's just hard to have these types of practical discussions and those settings, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
but if you have the candidates forum, I don't think anybody should
Political.
bombard the lady at a private, candidates forum.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna turn her off.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think-
we have to tiptoe
Right.
through these people.
No, I don't think we should be tiptoeing through
I
anybody.
do. I
There
think
are
we have to treat them the
legislators
right
and
way.
I didn't say be disrespectful. I'm not saying be disrespectful.
I didn't say
but
that
if we have an opportunity and we see a legislator somewhere to stop and have a conversation, not to put somebody in an awkward position, but absolutely, these are our legislators. I mean, how many times do we as board members run into parents that stop you and say,
Mhm.
this happened today, and of course, we say, okay, I understand, you need to contact this person, but we're all elected officials too, we know, there's no boundaries of who comes to us, and if there's a time and a place where our legislators are together, that's the time to, and if that's them running for some type of office, and that's a forum for them, we as citizens of this town should go and say, hey,
Well, those are our
what are you
questions.
gonna do for
You
us?
want us to vote for you, tell us
Exactly.
why we should vote for you.
I just want to learn how to write these letters better. So like, you know what I mean? That's,
Well, I
Yeah.
definitely think it's worth the continuing effort to reach out to her, to continue to
Absolutely.
try to get her to come to this meeting here or to finance or
To
anything.
this meeting.
But maybe it's also worth sending her the draft and saying, we are working on, like, this is what we're working on, and we're actively trying to seek the best ways to help promote funding for our district. I wanted to share this letter with you. Can you please provide us with feedback on this?
right, we're not really even asking her to do anything. We would just like her guidance.
You know,
Right.
what?
Really helps her.
I wouldn't even ask for feedback. I would say, this is a letter that we're sending out because of the issue. And we just wanted to be courteous enough to send it to you, to show you first before it goes out.
Right, but to Ms.
I
Fabiano's
agree.
point, I feel like, I do understand what you're saying. I also feel like if we're trying to get additional funding for next year, is there a certain way that she would want to see it so she can present it
Exactly.
That's
to?
something, I think that's something.
I don't even need her to answer, sorry, my suggestion would be, I don't really even, I'm looking for an explanation of why, but just more of like, here's the best way to go about making a change. Because we're talking about writing letters that, we could send 150,000 letters. I don't know who's reading them.
If they're getting
I
ready.
don't want it to fall on deaf
My guess is that there is a pipeline to get things done. We all know how it works.
Assistance.
I want to know where it is and how to get to it, and I just want to, just so we can expedite this, because every year that passes is another graduating class that's marginalized. And, we've been talking about money now for
Ever.
how long? And we're talking about every year, like I said, as another graduating class that gets marginalized in a sense where they're not optimizing what the experience should be. And 6 months pass, and then another class exits, and then next thing we know, it'll be 2035, and we're still talking about letter campaigns.
So, yeah,
2030.
I think,
2035.
let's hope it's not 2035.
I
I
don't
think,
think
so,
I'll-
I think that
I mean, no, not body on earth, I mean, on the board, that's only,
Well, I'm being a little dramatic, but I mean, letters are letters.
and I'm outliving
that
everybody
we can
here.
do, and this will kind of be twofold, is if we share this letter with her, then we can tie in the question of how do we go about, I don't know if I want to necessarily say the word asking, but asking that
Advocating.
we,
Advocating.
advocating for another resolution for Monroe next year. What does that process look like? How, like, what does she need from us?
Or even like,
That we're still
we're
sending
gonna
it.
send, and we've marked down all of the things.
Right,
Please use these figures
Help us help you.
as your reference.
as your reference to what we need, because this is twofold. This
It is.
gets in front of the legislators to say, oh, wow, look at what they need. And it also shows our residents, oh, wow, look at what our needs are.
Right.
So having a bulleted, and I think that's why we.
That's why
the group
we all
said-
No, we all said we wanted bullet.
I think it's important to recognize,
Letter, because people see that big long letter, they're gonna go,
there's nothing, there's no iPads on here, there's no fancy robotic
Right.
kits. We're talking about ADA compliance,
Right.
we're
And
talking
that's
about climate
important,
control,
that
respiratory concerns.
because I know somebody I can call about ADA, not
So
compliance.
I think that the itemization of our needs, both in communication with the local municipality and at the larger level, and also I think it's important for our community to realize that what we are asking for are not shiny things.
Yeah.
We're not asking for
Yeah,
Cadillacs.
must-haves.
These are the must-haves that we've been speaking about now. And it's frustrating because of what we talked about it last night at curriculum committee, is that our emergent curricular needs, eventually, we're gonna have to make choices. And you know, we're trying to be creative to generate revenue because of this. Because we don't want to raise taxes. We don't want to do things like marginalized learning experiences in the 21st century, highly competitive school district. This is what we are. And I get the sentiment that sometimes that there is just talking with people around town and even throughout our district, our legislative district, that what we're asking for are rims on a car or tinted windows. We're talking about ADA toilet rooms. We're talking about boiler replacements and a roof replacement.
Right.
And-
Windows.
Yeah, windows. So I think sometimes there's a misnomer that, oh, Monroe, what do they have? What do they need? More iPads? No, that is not what we're talking about here. We're trying to simultaneously sustain and grow a school district from an operational and structural standpoint without compromising
Right.
the curriculum instruction that we're very proud of.
And this is just my opinion, but the primary focus of, the Board of Education should not be trying to create revenue so that we can educate. It should be, a whole bunch of things. And I feel like, well, I'm not saying that's not something that we need to do. It shouldn't be what we have to do in order to do everything else. And, getting funding is by far the most successful way of.
The sad thing is that if we don't get support from the state, we're gonna have to go back to our local Monroe residents and ask them for support. And I don't think that any of us in this room wanna have to do that, if we don't have to. And unfortunately, we need the state to help us avoid that.
So this kind of ties into the next item. One of the next items on the agenda was, and that directly impacts the school and our space and kind of why we're in this mess that we're in, is the resolution that I'd like to thank Gail and Kate for working on. We drafted a resolution to be presented at the delegate assembly for impact fees. We wanted to share it here first, and then if the committee wants to move it forward, we'll bring it forward to the full board to vote on, and then we can bring it to the NJSBA assembly meeting.
So, Ms. Tiffany did some initial research on here, and then I did some research and
She
teaching.
did some tweaking, because she's younger than I am.
I used this sample resolution from the New Jersey School Boards Association. And then what I did, I was speaking to them about how I almost felt like I was writing legal stuff, which is why I really feel like Mr. Gagliardi, or someone from the firm should look it over, because there is stuff in there that, despite the fact that I got it from the legislative website and it's all government stuff, I want to make sure what's there is right.
Fine.
So it's, the following resolutions received from the Monroe Township Board of Education, Middlesex County. whereas the Delegate Assembly is the official policy-making body of the New Jersey School Boards Association, herein referred to as the NJSBA, and whereas in 1975, the New Jersey State Legislature passed an Act, PL 1975 C-291, requiring builders to pay for the effects a development will have on a municipality, but limited these fees to roads, sewers, and water supplies. And whereas within the last several years, the New Jersey State Legislature has passed several pieces of legislation requiring municipalities to increase the amount of mandated housing, for example, the Mount Laurel Doctrine and the Fair Housing Act. And whereas on March 7th, 2022, a piece of legislation was introduced 2168 to the New Jersey State Senate, raising concerns about the burden placed on local school districts due to an increase in new development. And whereas, I'll try to go as fast as I can, the large number of residential housing units being built each year has led to a significant student enrollment increase over the last 20 years. And whereas the increase of enrolled students has led to extreme overcrowding in our school buildings and caused a severe budgetary strain on the Monroe Township School District. And whereas the Monroe Township School District is struggling to educate our children properly and provide proper facilities without additional financial assistance from impact fees. And whereas the majority of the states in the United States currently require that school districts be included as part of the impact fees assessed on new development. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education would like to see impact fees that require builders to pay for the effects new developments will have on the local school system. Therefore, be it resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education proposes our NJSBA presents our concerns regarding impact fees to current New Jersey state legislation. Resolved that the New Jersey State Legislature review current legislation and modify impact fees to include assistance with the educational infrastructure. Resolved that this resolution be placed on the agenda for consideration at the NJSBA Delegate Assembly taking place on December 2nd, 2023. And just like really quick, there were a couple of things in there where I was like, do we want to put that in? Like, for example, struggling to educate our children properly and provide proper facilities without additional financial assistance. I mean, our kids are learning and they're in facilities, but at the same time, I feel like if we don't stress that we're struggling to continue doing that, then it doesn't show how important it is for us to get that financial assistance.
The one thing that struck me, so we want a buy-in, so New Jersey School Boards has their delegate assembly.
Right.
And they're going to propose, they select which resolution is final. And then from there, New Jersey School Boards will support that resolution and push that through to the legislators as they're supporting this, if it's voted on. So I think, and I didn't see what the other school districts proposed, so I don't know if they usually write them specific to just their town, or if we want to include, maybe take out the personal stuff out of Monroe and put more of how it's affecting
Education in general with the
in New
continued
Jersey,
growth.
all over, in every
And it's
district.
everywhere. You look at what the growing.
So from what I recall,
personal.
what I recall, I was gonna say, and I've only been to two, they usually put in the name of their school district.
Their school district.
And that's what the sample had. But I totally understand the point being made because.
Or maybe say how it affects us, and, you know, I think we should put in there how many school districts are in New Jersey, it impacts, this is definitely impacts every district in the state of New Jersey. Because you want your colleagues there at the assembly to say, yes, I agree, this will help us too, this will help our district too, because if impact fees are across the state and you're allowed to now, go after builders for impact fees, that's every single district would be.
I did some research on there, I should have I didn't bring it up, but, I went on the line, and in this country, there's 26 states that use their impact fees for schools. And with those states, and they're mostly out west, and Florida is one of them. California and Florida were the first two states to have the impact fees in 1950, I think it was. They started it. And most of the states, the impact fees covered, I could tell, two lines of things. First one was always schools. And then if you look at New Jersey, water, sewer, two other crazy names, and I wanted to say, well, you need water and sewer in the schools, you know, so, I mean, you gotta fix our schools unless you know, and it was like, out of all of them that I looked and I read through, I was like, what the heck, we don't do anything here.
Right.
With all the overbuilding that we've had over the last decade, I would say. I mean, I used to see open space all around. I mean, Monroe, I know as a kid, I used to come with my grandfather here to farms and it was all farms and forget New Brunswick, it's all asphalt and everything else. But North Brunswick was a lot of farms too. And now you can't find a space to put anything. And it's not fair. I remember when they took it off and how we lost the money for schools. And then they put all these new projects in, and I had said to the superintendent, I drive by them and there's kids hanging all over. Where are they going? Oh, we don't know. Okay, so nobody regulates it. Nobody looks into it to see what you're putting in. And I was amazed at all the literature that I found on these
Yeah.
impact fees, and it was mostly all states out west.
I'm wondering if we'd be able to share with Patty Reese to get some
Right.
feedback on it.
He might
as
not be our
as
rep anymore. I had heard at the last
What?
Middlesex meeting that they might be switching around.
Again?
He might not be ours.
Did she just get here?
She just
So
did.
whatever field rep
Just
we
did.
need, at
She
least
has a lot of districts.
Yeah.
And I think,
I
yeah,
know they were hiring more.
they
field
hired,
reps,
they hired one more, like
Like a
Rob,
training
with
person.
Rob Sarah, and then they had another person
Karen
that took care.
Callahan.
And they have a new one, Karen Callahan, who's taken our district.
so maybe just sending it to NJSBA.
Right, I can send it to the governmental relations. I
Yeah.
actually got
Yes,
an
send it
email
to them.
about the legislative
This is
committee,
what
so
we-
I
we
can
have
contact
this.
them, and ask them for
Because
their
it's
opinion,
terrible.
how to make this so that more
It's
districts
my
will buy
favorite
into it.
color too, but I won't do that.
And then I can do
That's
that
very
tonight
nice
and
of
then
you.
send it
Thank
out, and then we
you.
can hopefully ask Mr. Gagliardi to take a look at
Thank
the
you.
legal jargon of it.
I know you love
I
it
don't-
like I do.
As much as I can pretend like I
Thank you, Elise.
can do that, and I spent hours trying to figure it out, that's definitely not my expertise,
What?
the legal, like the
No,
format and the legal
No.
stuff.
it's not mine either,
Is
but I
that
mean,
something that we'd want to send because the board, everything goes out on the Friday, or is that something we could just have them look at and we can have just read aloud like we do as a resolution on Wednesday?
Yeah, I mean, if it's ready by Friday.
it
or
should be
is it
sent
ready
out
by-
so everybody could look at it
Yeah.
first. And if they had suggestions too, somebody else might have some knowledge and suggestions like what you said, and maybe other board members might.
Yeah.
So I
We'll
think that,
share it out
I think it should be
to
shared.
Okay,
Vito
yeah.
and to NJSBA and then get some feedback and
Yes.
share it back so that it can be.
Yeah, I had sent it to Ms. Bora, as VP, and, you know, I had actually just had a conversation with her, and she had mentioned that,
Oh, that's
there was a couple of like little grammatical things, but she sort of said what I said, like, where did you find the legal stuff? And I was like, well, I went on the government legislative website, but I'd still like it checked to make sure it's correct.
Yeah, we should, yeah.
Okay, great. So just, I'm jumping back to the letter writing campaign real quick and then going to the next item on the agenda, just so we have a path to continue forward with that. So, we'll make some modifications to
Yeah.
the letter.
What I'm hearing, just to confirm,
Yeah,
is we're gonna leave the letter as is, but in the very first paragraph, we're going to state the funding as it stands. We're gonna actually make the statement that it is
Yes.
not fair funding.
right.
In our understanding, it is not fair funding and does not provide us with the, with the needed, income or whatever word we use, money's received, blah, 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 so that it gives an explanation and we'll do a transition. We'll do a transition to why we release the things below.
Yes.
So it's gonna take exactly what you said, and we're gonna take, because I do think it should be one letter, and I do think perhaps, even though we could use two different letters for two different audiences, I think it might be a good idea if we take that letter and take Mr. Moraldo's suggestion on the bottom part of it.
Yes.
And
I-
put in legislature,
Right.
because then it's one letter, because can you imagine if people are really making the effort, which would be great, to go on the website and be like, do I look at letter A?
Right, which
Do I
ones
look
do
at
I
letter
want
B?
to?
Let's just make it all inclusive so that we're able to say whether we're reaching out to the legislatures or we're reaching out to the Board of Education, we'll just make it all one.
Well, yeah, that way legislators will see that we're reaching out to everybody.
And you know,
And
And they'll say, oh, God, they're
Yeah, really
asking
mean it. They really
everybody,
mean
so
it,
we
yeah.
better be careful.
you know, it could be great, and I don't know if this is something we're even allowed to do, but, you know, at Oktoberfest, I know like last year there was a table, can we have
Yes.
the letter, so, because there are a lot of people that go there, to have them sign it, you know, in addition to having it electronically available.
Yes.
Yeah, we weren't sure, we always like to, when we get a table, we have to, Zach and I just had this conversation just the other day. Oktoberfest, he's like, okay, we can go to Oktoberfest, and what are we doing at
We
Oktoberfest?
said, what are we gonna do there?
There you go, just give me something.
There's that.
That was my initial,
I mean, if you want, I'll smile.
Give out the
you know, my
letter.
initial was, oh, we need to sign up, and he's like, Sherry, what for? I go, what do you mean? He's like, well, what are we doing there? I go, well, I'm not sure, what are we doing there? Because last year was different, because we were trying to pass grant money.
Right.
So, but it's a competition.
Could we give a stamped, self-addressed envelope with the letter
You ask, you know.
so that they send it
ask Mr.
in?
Chaley anything.
Have information about enrichment.
Yeah, we could talk about program of studies, yeah, you know, we'll be there, so might as well.
We have to just find out the deadlines and all the,
October 10th.
Yeah, it's coming up.
is the deadline, and when is the?
October 22nd?
Or
Is October
second.
5th?
This is Sunday,
It's
October
Sunday.
22nd.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Oh,
Okay, I'm gonna skip over the state BOE meeting, and I just wanna just quickly touch on, I don't know if anybody was aware, this is an article on NJ.com about third and fourth graders getting free tutoring. That was the tutoring program that I had on the agenda. This article was shared with me from another board member, in another county. And just a quick, synopsis, third and fourth graders in New Jersey may receive an academic boost this year under a new high impact tutoring program designed to help students recover from pandemic related learning loss. It says the Department of Ed is releasing $52 million in federal funds to local school district for 1 year of high impact tutoring. The program, which begins October, I think it says 11th, the cutoff, runs through August 31st and is open to all public school districts in the state that serve students in third and fourth grade.
Yeah, well, we can speak on that, and actually, Dr. Lehman and I had this conversation because, we have, as you know now, Ms. Christine Christie, who's our, director, and she's also our director of grants. She went and did the webinar, is that correct, Dr. Lehman? And if you wanted to give the feedback regarding what she
Yeah,
thought.
it's a competitive grant, and they look at applications based on your plan to, I guess, utilize these. Basically, it's
Private companies.
private companies that you would develop a plan to utilize, focusing on grades 3 and 4. That's where the priority is. During the school day, 30 to 60-minute timeframes, 3 days a week. So we have spent last year, we're continuing our work this year with very similar kind of interventions through our RTI process. And a lot of what we would get out of this grant, we have, we're using title funds to support and things. So there's a lot of overlap with what's going on. So we, at this point, aren't going to engage in this. Because what we have in place utilizes our own staff to provide interventions and support as opposed to a private company. Which they're open to employing our staff, but the way it's designed is, at least being advertised right now through the grant, is it's during the school day. So our staff is already working for us during the school day. What are they gonna do?
In addition.
They're working for us.
Right.
They can't work for the private company at the
Right.
same time and provide those supports. So, you know, there was a lot of feedback given during the presentation about how this grant's gonna roll out, because they have an accelerated timeline about getting this spent. The state looks like they need to spend the money this year.
Yep.
I've got a big-
Quick turnaround.
And we have some stuff they can.
And overwhelmingly, the districts were,
Concern.
yes, that's a
They were
good word,
concerned.
concerned about how to implement with the expectations. Third and fourth graders missing 3 one-hour sessions of instruction during the school day. That in itself, and many students that need these supports need to be in the classroom as well. So what we do to support them already.
Yep.
We are tactful and strategic about where we
Take them
support them and pull them out of class. And we're doing it like, you'll see, I think on this agenda, we'll have approval for title-funded interventionists at the high school. So that we are actually, our program is K-12 in terms of support, as opposed to they're prioritizing grades 3 and 4. So that's our read on this as of now. Some districts may have, well, I know there are a lot of districts that don't take the same approach that we do with our title funding. We are very, very strategic with how we spend our funds and put them right in the classroom. And we do that year after year. So that's why we are fortunate to have these kind of similar things in place. There may be districts that don't strategically or use their funds differently than ours, and we'll have some cool ideas. And maybe we can kind of, through some of our enrichment programming or something, see some models they roll out and utilize structures or whatever that they may employ. But that's kind of our approach of this. I'm curious to see how this is gonna roll out.
Sure.
A, it's really fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
There are a lot of concerns coming from many, many districts about
Private companies.
the merging of this, the private piece with our
Sure.
public piece and the expectations of the time in which these are occurring.
Mhm.
We offer a ton of support after school. If,
They want to do after school, but take the money.
yes, but they award grants based on.
You like that?
They
Absolutely.
rank applications and they award grants based on where their priorities are, and the priorities are specific grade levels with specific times in both during the school day and then the length of period of time. So if we were to even put one in that just focuses on supporting our students after school,
They
it
would,
may not.
would be on the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna fund where their priorities are first. So I'd actually like to see how much funding they actually get out of this. And they may realize that, hey, we need to have a broader scope of what we're expecting,
Mhm.
and then we'll come in and,
Yeah.
you know, grab what we can, but
Did they mention it was a pilot program, or is it just a?
this is just,
No, it's
it looks
grant
like,
money.
Yeah.
it looks like to me, this is COVID money,
Okay.
that there's a timeline on certain allocations. They were basically done in like 3-year increments. We're probably coming up in the deadline of one of those allocations, and this is a program that the state's looking to. There's gonna be districts that, like I said, don't have in place what we have already.
So it'd be very advantageous for them.
They may be like, finally, we get some funding, and we could try and work with this somehow to do what we need to do. We've done, and we continue to do, and that's why you saw the AIR contract, the American Institute of Research. We have that. We worked with them last year, this year, about restructuring our multi-tier system of support. These types of interventions they're talking about, the small group interactions, is exactly what we're doing to support those targeted students. And there's other things in the MTSS process, but part of that is in high-intensity support through reading specialists, basic skills teachers, things like that.
Push in, pull out.
Correct.
And you don't want to pull children out of school, out of the
No,
class during the day.
very strategic, what we do it now
disruptive.
is, yes,
It's very
you're
disruptive.
absolutely right.
Can I just mention something really quick? Because fourth grade was brought up, and this is, it's a federal government program, which, it's available to all fourth grade parents, and fourth grade educators, and I actually just found out about it this week because my nephew's in fourth grade. It's called Every Kid Outdoors, and it lets fourth graders and their families have free passes to go to national parks and historic monuments and things like that. So you just said fourth grade, and like it didn't click on me, so I figured I'd share it. Certainly nothing we need to do with the committee, but I
Right.
figured if the public's watching, they have a fourth grader, maybe they'd be interested in looking it up.
I think it's great.
Yeah, me too.
I wish I had a fourth grader.
All right, so then, the next item on the agenda, is community education. So this was something that we had said was sparked by conversation on social media about past, it used to be a community education program here in the district. It's no longer here. And this is, again, one of those things, like we said, that's the cross
And actually,
committee.
and something was discussed that, I don't know if you had a chance to.
I have not had a chance to
Okay.
watch it yet.
Okay.
So I know I was discussing
Yes, because that's
curriculum
what we
for a
thought
little
it
bit.
belonged, but we understood why you felt it, and we have
So-
many things that cross over.
Yeah, so, we just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit, about what it was,
Okay.
with the potential for what it.
So,
Well, I was gonna say, I'd actually, spoken to Ms. Fabiano about this, and a few months back, I'd actually brought up like the idea of a parent academy and stuff. This is a little bit different from that, because I remembered how like my grandparents used to take classes, like there were ballroom dancing classes and things like that. And then when I saw it, on social media, it sort of like re-triggered it in my brain, and so, I said, this is something we can talk about. And by no means was it, we need to institute this right now. One thing that I saw, and then I actually heard yesterday, was that the senior center and the library offer a lot of programs, which they absolutely do. Like, I'm at the library at least once a week with my kids. I adore the programs there, and my parents have done some things at the senior center now. But one thing that I have noticed is that everything is done during the day there. So like at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, there are occasional evening programs at the library, but the senior center doesn't have a lot of them in the
Not
evening.
past
It's kind of
6.
better.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I know there was the concern about cost, and ultimately we don't want to do anything where we're going to lose money without knowing the history of it, which you guys probably know better than I would. I know that they were charged tuition for these classes. So I wasn't, looking at that, I didn't know if that's something where if there's an interest, right? So like if the residents, if we sent out a survey, would this be something you're interested in? If they'd be willing to pay enough, where maybe it could be something that creates revenue, which again, isn't something we should be doing it as our primary thing. Is that a possibility? So that was sort of, where it came from. By no means was it, let's get this started today. It was just sort of bringing it up as a discussion topic.
So it was actually discussed in both finance and curriculum,
Okay.
which is good. So Ms. Allen did provide information. Not only was it a program that we, not only did we not break even, but it cost us money.
Right.
So it was a program that wound up becoming a deficit to the districts. The cost that's involved with staffing it, there were, at the time, I've been here long enough to know this, so there was a director. We also had to have room allocation. When we had certain rooms being utilized, they couldn't be utilized for other groups that were perhaps coming in and paying a different rate, because we always have the difference in the rates as per our policy, the way how things work. And it was just wanted being a cost that outweighed its benefit. So I think that it's also a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Staffing wise, which one of us, who's responsible, what does it mean? And, at this point, it's not something that we absolutely are not ready to take on. But more importantly is we'd have to look at a fee structure that would be not only enough to help us sustain the program, but we would have to be bringing in revenue, because we are not at a point where we could afford any of the costs, whether it be maintenance, cleaning up. One of the things that we always talk about when we changed the fee structure, because our fee structure was extremely low, and I came on and did that as acting. I believe I was still acting in that position. When we changed the fee structure is because we were so much cheaper than our neighboring districts I'm not talking about our Monroeans, our neighboring districts who do not live here were coming here to utilize our facilities, not their own, because we were so cheap. So when we changed our fee structure, in order to, forget about just, bringing in revenue, but also covering our costs, people couldn't believe the fee structure and how it had to be changed, because we were so cheap. So these are the kinds of conversations that if this ever became something we want to move forward with, it's a major undertaking and it's extremely costly. Air conditioning, heating. The other thing people don't realize is, sanitizing. We clean everything. Yeah, I was gonna go to that. So we clean everything, and then, for our children, then we have people coming and use our facilities, depending upon the fee structure, or do we have enough money to pay the custodians for the shift, to come back, re-clean it again, and then we have really been passionate, and by adding, and I wanna thank the Board of Ed, because you're the ones that approve it, by adding on security. We have the attitude of, well, it's not our program. No, I know that's a double negative, but everything that happens in our buildings becomes ours. It's our buildings. So then you have security, and then we'd have to look at the fee structure of what tier is this group going to be? How is this group going to be? Are they going to be ours? So I think that, right now there is a lot of fabulous activities. Dr. Roselle works very, very closely with the library. She does a great job. So we have a lot for a lot of different groups of people. So it's not something I think that we should move forward on now. That being said, it's always a conversation. There's nothing wrong with a conversation. But, Ms. Allen is the one that shared with us that we lost money.
And I think also under Mr. Morales'.
Oh, yes, right, you were part of it.
The enrichment, trying to make
Oh,
that
yes.
year round rather than just the summer, right? We were talking about
Yeah,
opportunities.
Yeah, did you want to speak a little bit about that? Because that was the second part of it.
Yeah, so, I was around when the former adult school was in place. And at the time I was even supervising the fine performing arts. And we were examining ways on how, that kind of got the conversation starting on enrichment and the legwork we were putting in. And I have to be honest with you, the first thing we thought of is like, why aren't we doing this for kids versus grownups? And with all due respect to the grownups in the community, we felt that there is a demand for, especially coming off this summer, there's a strong community response to year-round enrichment programming. And from my personal opinion and perspective, that would probably be more in the interest, this is my personal opinion, I'm not speaking on behalf of anyone here. That would be probably more in the interest of the district to maybe zero our attention on offering more enrichment program for our students and our learners, particularly given the unique assets we have in this district. I'm not saying that we can't shut the door on the idea, but I would suggest based on community response and our task as a Board of Education, the priority probably should be to, in my opinion, to take a look at what we can do for kids prior to getting into the other realm.
Go ahead.
Years ago, when my kids were little, I took classes at North Brunswick High School through Middlesex County College, and their teachers were there, and I paid the fee to Middlesex County College, and I know we're working with Middlesex County College with the students. It might be something to think about. I don't know how close, we're closer to Mercer or Middlesex, to see what people, I don't know, did you have the teachers teach the
There was a
adult
combination.
classes here?
So this is where, you know, this is where it became a little gray.
Oh, okay.
There was a mixture of teachers and residents from the community, some of which were business owners. And it became a little blurry of what the intent was
Oh, I
of some
can
of the
see that,
classes.
yeah.
Like, for example, one of the classes you know what, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but, you know, there were some
Yeah,
concerns
we
that, there were some concerns about, intent, what the best interest of the district was, and whether or not this initiative was actually serving the district. The district was covering the fee of the stipend, for the director of that, organization, is my understanding. And I'm not quite sure the school district, particularly the students or the teachers, were reaping the benefits. And as you know, that the revenue generation was just not there.
So going along with that, and like granted, none of us were on the board when this was being enacted and when it was stopped, right? So like there is that policy, there's a policy that says that we'll establish and maintain it. I don't know what, like how mandatory policies are, but ultimately we are here to serve, you know, the students, the staff. I do wonder if there was enough interest in the community, if maybe this is an opportunity for like a shared services where maybe the township would be willing to take on a burden of the cost so that we are not losing money.
We're asking them for a roof and for a boiler.
Yeah, I would ask for a roof. But I hear what you're saying.
They are in essence, because we have Dr. Roselle, who is our
Liaison.
liaison and our supervisor. And if you look at the programming that they have at the library, there was English as a second language. There was, you know, there's a lot of educational programs there. And then for adults, there was crocheting, there was sit and stitch, which was, I guess.
And we support the library. Anytime they put out, and we have a tremendous partnership with them. Anytime we are more than willing, we promote all of their activities. We'll always share their things on Facebook, and we will do that to anyone in the community. I don't want this to be misconstrued that we're trying to shut down adult learning, not at all. We think it's great, obviously. In fact, there are some instances where it probably help our kids, particularly when you get into the technical areas. I think just based on examining the enrichment model and some of the things that we're going to discuss further about the operations of it, the benefit it brought to the staff, particularly when it comes to staff training and professional development. In my opinion, as someone that works directly with the staff and is charged with developing preeminent programming, that if we were going to make a move to expand programming, I would think that would be in the best interest of the district, particularly because one, you're hiring your certified staff, and which is always good for our teachers. But at the same time, they're conducting and designing programs that are directly aligned with what we're trying to do as a school district. When we relinquish that control, we could have someone come in here and teaching finance a different way, which is fine, but
You get
as a school district, we're trying to, you know, we're obliged to state standards and things like that.
Perhaps, you know, because I'm all for adult education and the, you know, relationships. I even was at a football game, was at one of the football games, and a woman came up to me. She needed to be escorted, you know, by our little cart. And she said, I remember you. Are you will you come back? So I said, oh, I remember, and I did remember, I remember you too. She said, oh, we loved having you speak about the schools. Would you come back? And I said, of course. And we have been invited. Some of them fell on some holidays, but we have been invited. So she's like, you know, you brought such knowledge and so forth. And the reason why I share that is because I agree with you. We want to bring that, but I would think it would be the township's responsibility to provide additional. I mean, we have this beautiful senior center and we do have the library, and we would think that the community, that's what I meant. The senior center, I'm not allowed to say
Senior
that, I'm
center,
sorry.
that's only open, the senior center is run by Nancy, and I can't think of her last name right now. She's the new director.
But it's through the township.
Yes, and she told, the other day I went to a meeting, and they were said that the evening things held there is not run by the senior center staff.
And I respect
And
it,
it's
but
run by, I guess it might be township.
well, I would think that the township, if we were looking to have education,
Yes,
even if
yeah,
some of our teachers
yeah.
teach it, you would think that through the community center and the senior center,
Yeah.
that perhaps the township would create this position and move forward with it. not the school district.
Well, and the community center has a whole list of programming too. They offer yoga classes, they offer, I mean, there's a whole.
And we work with them, sorry.
Right. no,
But so like when we design our enrichment schedule, we try to, we're not in the business of competing with the town, like, we're on the same team.
Right.
So we actually will design our programming to try to avoid some of these conflicts. So our students could potentially do both, where our parents don't have to forego yoga class at the rec center to drive their kid here.
Correct.
And I just have this feeling that we're going to be developing year-round programming for our students, and I would be concerned about the
Fantastic.
yeah, I mean, it's a.
It has to be our first priority.
It has to be our first priority.
Absolutely, our students should
It's
absolutely
something
always
for
be
the
our first
future
priority.
to think
And,
about.
As far as, continuing this community education
Yes.
discussion, it might even just be something as simple as, expanding on times that things are available, like you were just saying. And that's not our responsibility right now, like township programs and things like that, but
That's
if
what I
it's
meant.
possible
Instead of
to
just ending
do
at
things a little bit
5:30,
later.
maybe they can just finish at 7 o'clock.
Right,
Because there's a
exactly,
million
just to make it more
classes at the
accessible
senior
to people.
center
I think
and
that's
all
kind
the
of
stuff that you were
key that
saying.
we're hearing.
But you also have to be over 55 for those, so
Oh, then I don't know why I joined.
I'm almost there. But, for some.
How did you sneak in?
I got I'm on the
12 years
commission
Oh.
for aging, I was appointed.
But-
They use the word aging still?
There, I know what it
There's a
yeah.
commission for
Are you
aging.
allowed to say that?
And I got yelled at for
Yes,
saying
that's
retirement
what it's
communities.
called, the commission for aging, that's what I'm on, I was
is. Now,
appointed
you know,
by
like
the
the
mayor.
commission for not
Non-aging.
eating, sound good either.
Because
Are
you're
you
right.
good? Okay.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to
Because
thank
we
you
have two
for
more
allowing the
items.
discussion,
Oh, yeah, of course.
certainly never saying it
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
be something to go over.
No, I think it's something.
All
to
right,
think
thank
about.
you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Morata.